obviously we're not California, okay, in a lot of ways, all right? Bless you. We are not known as the fruit basket of the U.S. We do not grow that much fruit. Historically, our largest temperate fruit, this is barring, pecans and citrus, peaches have actually decreased. This is as of 2012 stat, but we've seen a 54% decrease in about 15 years. Any ideas why?
Late freezes.
Late freeze, okay, yes, that's definitely one of them. Any other ideas? Insects and diseases, yeah. Hard work, yeah. So that is one of them, okay, yeah, I agree. Anything else? Chill hours, okay. Yeah, so that's actually what this is. This is a picture of La Feliciana, which is one of our, at least in College Station, it's one of, and should do pretty well for you here too. This is one of our best varieties, and if you notice, you've got the leaves coming out at the tip of the shoot, and then there's not much else, so no flower, but that's typical symptoms of insufficient chilling. All right, spring freezes, yeah, like you said. And hail damage, and I try to make it, I actually lived about 11 years in East Texas, and so I'm going to try to say it as hail, not hail, 2 syllables, and we're talking about, the liquid, the rocks, the ice water rocks that fall out of, not the other place, so anyway, so insufficient chilling, so, some years, like back in, I think it was about 2 years ago, we had about 1,000 hours of chilling here. And then back in 2015, 2016, that winter, it was what, like 400 or something? So we have an average of chilling that we typically get, which is probably what are y'all, about 700-800 hours here or so? 650. I thought y'all would be higher than that. But anyway, that's the average. And of course, we know about averages in Texas. They don't really mean anything. And so trying to select fruit species and varieties for those chilling requirements is really difficult because it's just extremely variable from year to year. And so, of course, anyone who's ever grown peaches knows that you get the chilling, everything's looking great, they bloom, you go ahead and thin your fruit, you're spraying, you're doing everything you should, and then late March, early April, you get that freeze and you lose your whole crop. And if not that, then, of course, it could be in May or June, then you have a hailstorm. And of course, obviously, because of our climate, with our humidity, our rainfall during the season, that's one of the things that makes California and places like the Mediterranean optimal for fruit cultivation, is because it doesn't rain during the growing season, especially for things like grapes. So y'all know what this is, right? What is that? Or what did that used to be? This brown thing, the hint is in the brown. This is still a peach, you can tell by the leaves. Monolinia, brown rot. So that is one of our major problems with trying to grow peaches. It's a fungus, comes in with humidity and rainfall, and a lot of times you don't see it until right before it's fully ripe. And so you've got these nice peaches and then they end up rotting on you. I have seen peaches that have actually come out so early that they had freeze damage to branches this big, actually. So it's not just the fruit. Okay, enough with actually I got a few more. So we just want to know what we're up against first, okay? So any ideas what's going on here? You can tell by the horizontal lenticels, this is some kind of prunus species. Any ideas? So there's something that's eating on there, but think small. Think under the bark, maybe. Could be some ants, but... So we have, one of our major problems with stone fruit is just keeping the trees alive over time, at least letting them get old, really to be long-lived, is because of borers. We have 3 different species of borer: American plum borer, greater and lesser peachtree borer. And people have tried different things like using... wrapping them, using mothballs to keep them away, but commercially the way they deal with this is spray Lorspan chloropyrifos usually mid-August, which is a pretty harsh chemical, but it gets the job done. What's going on here? Y'all don't see a lot of this around here. Why are those leaves so yellow? That's not one of Dr. Creech's yellow golden live oaks or whatever selected to be yellow.
Lack of iron?
Lack of iron, yes ma'am, yeah. So iron deficiency, so a lot of the state, including where College Station is, the soil pH is too high, and so we have micronutrient deficiency. Here's a tree that actually totally died because we had a really late freeze. We got some critters out there too. So I live by the Brazos River on 100 acres, and it's pretty nice because I've got sand on top of red clay. I can actually grow stuff out there, but of course being by the river we have these guys, a bunch of oink oink oinks, and they do make a mess, as their name suggests. I know Malcolm has had to deal with them here along the Lanana. They can be a huge problem, and then of course we got these guys, which a lot of ways to keep them out. You can eat them, eat what's eating your stuff, but that's not, some people don't want to do it that way. And of course, this is what we tend to see. We see a lot of browsing. I was doing a consulting job, and this place had put in probably, 10 acres of trees, and they never got the fence up. They never did anything about the deer. And this is critical during the first year, because not only is it setting the plant back, but you're trying to develop your scaffolds and everything and really shape that tree, and you keep getting them bitten back like that. But one of the worst things they do, and I know Dr. Creech has problems with this here, and I saw this golden live oak over here had chicken wire around it. The bucks will rub on there, and that's I've seen many trees killed that way. What's going on here? Sorry, it's kind of a small picture.
Is that a pig?
Anybody ever seen Caddyshack? The gopher? So gophers, of course, in sandy soils can be really bad because, of course, they eat the roots. This is a bit of a gruesome picture. I'm just going to be honest, but this is if anyone in here is having to deal with gophers, this is the best, my experience, the best trap for actually getting them. It's called a Victor black box, and it basically simulates the end of a tunnel, and you put it in there. I usually try to find the main runway and put two in opposing directions, and it kills them pretty quickly. It's like a reverse guillotine, and it really works well for taking out gophers. Okay, in spite of all these problems that we still have people growing fruit successfully. People are still making money. We're still seeing trees sold. This picture is up there near Gilmer, Tree Town, who is one of the largest growers of trees. They sell to retailers like Home Depot, Lowe's, and Walmart. These are all Asian persimmon trees, actually, and they're growing them by the thousands. So there is hope. We are seeing production out there, but education is extremely important. So knowing what to plant, when to plant, how to take care of it. This is a good opportunity of what not to plant. This is down the road where I live, and I'm an extension. I refer to these as educational opportunities, okay? And I get in trouble because people, I'm doing this as an educational opportunity. So anyway, this is down the county road where I live, and I say, what in the world? Somebody planted, at the time it was a Colorado blue spruce. Now it's been firewood for a long time. That was a couple years ago, but in a couple weeks it turned into a Colorado yellow spruce. I'll be honest, it took about 3 months to die in the summer heat, but it died a slow, agonizing, terrible death. So obviously we've got things to deal with. We've got soil, we've got cold hardiness, we've got chilling. So, Now I go out there and I do exactly what I say not to do, what I tell everybody not to do, and I try to grow all the hard stuff just because it's fun. So these are some of the things that we're not supposed to grow here that I've had fun growing. Cacao, starfruit, papaya, wax jumbo. Pineapples are actually very easy to grow if you have a small greenhouse. This is in about a year and a half. I'm able to get pineapples from crowns that I plant in pots. Really easy. Macadamia nut, coffee. There's probably some other stuff. Bananas, some other stuff there too. But okay, we're going to talk tonight about some of the easy fruits to grow. Okay, what do I mean by easy? Low maintenance, okay, yeah. Yeah, so, I work a lot in earth-kind, which is sustainable, low maintenance, low input landscape. So what does that mean? What's low maintenance?
Not very demanding plant.
Not demanding? What's that? Well, some of these you can. And actually some of them like jujube, you can forget about it, but you don't want to totally turn your back on it because it can sucker. But so when we talk about low maintenance, low input, we're talking primarily in the fruit world about pesticides and chemicals, fertilizers, things like that, and also pruning. So some of the ones that are generally pretty easy for us, and what I want to do is talk about some of these and some of the new things, give you some updates, new varieties, new things we're seeing with some of these guys. So blackberry, obviously, of course we have native blackberries and also dewberries here in East Texas, or the southeast. Fig, we know, of course, is an easy crop. Mulberry, depending on the species, or even native here. Does anyone not know jujube in here? Everybody knows jujube? Okay, well good, you're going to get to learn about it tonight. Jujube is the ultimate low maintenance, no maintenance, easy, organic, sustainable fruit. But it has one problem, well, it's thorny, and then the other problem is that it can sucker. But we'll talk more about that later. Asian persimmon. So this is a cousin, a different species of what you would find out in the woods that the raccoons and the possums are eating all the time. Pomegranates, actually, the trees, the plants grow pretty well here, but sometimes we have issues with fruit. We cannot grow the Bosc, the Anjou pears, the really nice European-type pears. Usually they end up succumbing to a bacterial disease called fire blight. A lot of the Asian pears we have trouble with too, but these hybrids, Orient, LeConte, Con, Warren, some of these ones are hybrids. They actually have pretty good disease tolerance and can be pretty easy and pretty long-lived. Okay, everyone in this area should know muscadines, of course. Vitis rotundifolia. And of course, there's been a lot of work done. Dr. Creech is the muscadine man in Texas, undisputed. Justin's working on trying to, but my major professor works with wine grapes and also really likes muscadines. Dr. Creech is also the blueberry expert in Texas. Loquat is one that can be pretty easy, but here a lot of times we just get too cold in the wintertime. The tree is actually hardy to about 12 degrees. The problem is the darn thing blooms in the middle of wintertime. And so it puts out, this new, reproductive growth, and it gets down to 27 or 26 degrees and it's toast. And so loquats a lot of times can give us a problem. One that Dr. Creech and I are working on is pineapple guava or feijoa. They also call it guavastine. We'll talk about that. Goji berry is a new one. It's kind of out there, but it's from my experience, a pretty easy plant to grow. And also, of course, we're going to give you an update on golden kiwi fruit, what we've learned. So, all right, so just a reminder, fruit can be grown pretty readily in pots and containers. And of course, there are dwarfing rootstocks that are out there, but a lot of our fruits can be grown indefinitely in pots. I've had things that have been in pots for 15 years. I'm talking 30, 40-gallon pots. This is an apple tree at my parents' house. I'm from Blanco, which is out in the hill country. What is the hill country known for? It's arid, okay. Rocks, deer, rattlesnakes, yeah. So one thing is there's not much soil, okay? So this is out here, it's about 2 inches deep. We don't bother distinguishing between the top and subsoil because there's nothing there, okay? So I learned a long time ago to do a lot of containerized gardening. This is an apple tree on a full standard rootstock, not on a dwarfing rootstock like M111. This is a standard rootstock, and this is an apple tree that has, I think I grafted about 5 or 6 varieties on there, and it's not real happy, but it's still producing and doing pretty well in a 40-gallon pot. Citrus can be grown that way. Blueberry is one that's really easy to grow in pots, especially like the southern hayabush, which tends to be a smaller plant. Blackberries as well, and I've even grown a lot of tropical fruits in large containers. Okay, I want to talk about peaches just because I did my master's on peach breeding. It was a lot of fun, and Everyone wants to grow peaches. So I say it's the fruit that everyone kills but keeps planting. Everybody wants to have a peach tree in their yard, no matter how many times they failed, even if they never get fruit. We're still up to, I would say, probably around somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 acres in Texas. We've still got some areas like up around Pittsburgh where there's a lot grown, out toward like Fairfield, Mejia, where Ann is from, kind of out in that direction. Of course, there's some in the hill country, but a lot of that's getting replaced by the wineries, But peach is still a crop that can do pretty well for us. And I want to just pass along a few tips that I see as the most important things to keep in mind when growing peaches. One of the first thing is select the correct variety. So, of course, you can look, anytime you look like in a Womack's catalog, it'll tell you the approximate chilling requirement for that variety. So for something like, for example, like Tex Prince, it's going to be around 550, 600, Tex Royal, 650. It'll tell you that, and so usually there's a little flexibility there. So usually you can go 100 hours above or below what your average is, which is 650, 700. But you don't want to plant something that's 150 chill hours. You don't want to plant something that's like a Tropic Prince here. What's going to happen if you do that? If you plant something that has too low of a chilling requirement? So it gets its cold. It thinks winter's over, okay, because it's gotten its 150 or 200 chill hours. So the first time it warms up, which of course we do warm up periodically, like right now, it thinks it's spring. It starts growing, which of course is not good if it does it. I've got a tree in full bloom right now behind my house that's really low chill, and of course you end up with losing your whole crop. Now, at the same time, you don't want to select something like Ranger or Denman or something that's like 1,100 hours because you're never going to get enough chilling. Another thing that's really important is site selection. We want to plant on a place that gets good drainage and also air drainage. What do I mean by air drainage? How does air drain? Circulation, okay. So you've got air movement, wind. So if you look around here, this is a fairly hilly area. So you have sites that are on a hill. Some of them are down on the bottom. Where does cold air go? Sinks, yeah. So that means you don't want to plant your fruit trees in low areas. You want to be on the side of the hill or on the top of the hill. So that's extremely important for something like peaches that bloom pretty early. Another big thing is training them properly starting out. A lot of people will go and buy this 8 feet tall peach tree, plant it. They're basically buying a big shade tree. And they say, well, I paid $30 for that thing. I don't want to cut anything off of it. But it's really important to start out training it correctly at first, getting that open center 3 or 4 scaffold system going. Another big thing that I see people forgetting to do or not doing is thinning. So if you look here, this is kind of ideal what you'd like to see. You've got fruit about 4 to 8 inches apart. I usually say 6 to 8 inches apart. I could leave 20 fruit on this one branch, but the fruit are going to be this big, and 90% of it's going to be pit. Okay, so just keep that in mind. It's the hardest thing to teach, and of course, we want to be greedy. We want to get as many peaches as we can, but if you want them to be decent size, you've got to thin them. Another thing is a spray schedule too, whether you're going for trying to be organic with peaches or using synthetic chemicals. But your curculio, your brown rod and scab, those are your main problems. Drainage, which you don't have to deal with too much around here, not like College Station, is really important. This is my master's project where I had about 400 different varieties or selections of peaches, and I was doing a bunch of genetic stuff. We were trying to figure out how some of these genes are inherited and everything. This was in College Station where we don't call it soil, we call it dirt, okay? Because it's that bad. It's just sticky concrete. It's either concrete or it's sticky. And what I did here is I actually bedded it up with a blade behind the tractor, and they did pretty well. Now, if you try to find this site now, this is right across from the vet school. It's a big apartment complex now. And I got to actually watch them bulldoze it, but I had to be there to see what the root systems look like. I The scientist in me just couldn't help it. But I'm sorry.
How did they look? The root systems.
Oh, they were, well, as you might imagine, they were right here in this well-drained area where I had amended it with some horse manure and stuff like that, put gypsum in. Down here, there wasn't nothing. So, but they,
Prep school going in, they could have moved those trees and fertilized them with what comes into the vet plant.
well, and that's exactly what we did. Yeah, we used to be able to get all that stuff in from the horse center too, and we would put it out in the field and let it compost, rot up on its own, and then I rented a dump trailer to move it all, but it got to where we couldn't do that anymore because some kind of liability issues because there might be needles or something in there. So anyway, but it was fun. I learned a lot. The trees died, but we got some good data out of them. So in this picture right here, these are about 2 or 3 years old. They grew very, very well, and they were productive. Now I had these things double row staggered. We're trying to keep this small because it's just an experiment, and I just needed 2 years worth of data out of them. But I would get probably 50 to 75 fruit per tree, and they started producing very early too. So, and all of these I had to graft them or T-bud them too. So it was fun. We had white flesh peaches. We had the donut-shaped Pantal peaches. We had Pantal nectarines, donut peaches that were nectarines, and of course, the only difference between a peach and a nectarine is one gene, actually one allele. You can cross 2 heterozygous peaches together and get 1/4 nectarine and 3/4 peach. But anyway, I digress. But genetics is cool, and peaches taste good. I'm glad I got to work with peaches and not cotton because my research tasted good. So speaking of tasting good, I'm not going to go through all of these, but Dr. Byrne, my master's professor, has released a lot of new peaches. I believe last count over 14. Dr. Creech worked with his predecessor, Dr. Hollis Bowen, a ways back, and we've had a peach breeding program at Texas A&M for a pretty good while, and some of these are really nice. There's a White Delight series. One of these was in my experiment. I knew it as like TX3 213LW or something, but. So these are, if you've ever heard of a honey peach, a peach that just is kind of sweet, not tangy, doesn't have a bite, that's what you're looking at there, whereas some of these other ones are going to be more medium to high acid. There are some nectarines that are actually fairly well adapted for Texas. The thing with nectarines, though, a nectarine is basically a fuzzless peach, right? So all those little, if you look at them under a microscope, they're like these big spikes sticking up. So those are there for defense. Those help keep the fruit from drying out. They help repel water. They're hydrophobic, so it keeps fungus from growing on the fruit. And then they also help keep insects off. So nectarines, by their very nature, usually require more spraying. They're a little more trouble. But some of these can be pretty readily grown in our area. And you can go to our site. You can learn about these. They're a little hard to find right now. Texas Pecan Nursery up there in Tyler area, I know they're growing some of these. Womack has some of them. I think Treetown is growing some of these too. All right, let's talk about grapes. So you probably have learned by now, that you cannot plant Concord grape here. You can't grow flame seedless. You can't grow, Zinfandel. You can't grow, all these, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon. The main reason is because we have a disease problem because of our warm, humid conditions. The main disease we have is called Pierce's disease. Pierce's disease, it's a bacterial disease, and what it does, the bacteria is spread by a glassy-winged sharpshooter, this little leafhopper type thing that feeds on one vine. As it feeds, it's sucking up the xylem, the sap. It kind of vomits back into the plant. It's pretty terrible, and it's gross, and it's really bad for the plant when it gets sick. Then it flies to another one, and it spreads that disease to another plant. And basically what happens is the plant tries to contain the bacteria in the xylem tissue and ends up clogging up its own xylem, and most of the grapes will die from this. However, there are some that are that are resistant, or really more technically they're tolerant. And so some of these, the muscadines, of course, they're from here. They have naturally high tolerance to Pierce's disease, but there's some other ones too. This is champanelle. Champanelle is bred by the late T.V. Munson, who was the father, the pioneer of the Texas wine industry. There's actually a couple statues of him in France because he saved the French wine industry by breeding these French-American hybrids that they used as rootstock. But anyway, so champanelle is probably your best, I would say, for a juice grape. It's got a Concord flavor, probably your best juice type grape. This is Lamonto. It doesn't produce as heavily, but it's another one that's really good. Some people use it for blending with wine because it has really good anthocyanin content. This is Victoria Red, and we're really excited about this. This was jointly patented and released by Texas A&M and University of Arkansas, but really it was bred up there by the Arkansas program. This is a picture that, well, I don't think I took this picture, but that's my hand, okay? So anyway, these are delicious table grapes. They're large. They tend to have a pretty good color. They're kind of a blush. When they get more sun, they're more red. There's one problem with them. Any ideas? What do you not want in grapes? Seeds. They got seeds, and it's just, there's no way around it, but this is probably our best bet, at least right now, for growing table grapes here. They can get powdery mildew, black rot, some disease issues, so you probably will have to spray them a little bit, but I mean, they can make some really nice long clusters. This is razzmatazz, which Dr. Creech has down in Jimmy Hines Park. It is actually a hybrid. It's a sterile hybrid between a bunch grape and a muscadine. It's a really difficult cross to make because they have different number of chromosomes. But you get these little bitty, and they're tiny little grapes, but they're seedless. To me, they taste more like a table grape, but they're kind of like a muscadine, but they're firm. The skin is not thick. They're really tasty. But this plant will almost fruit itself to death. That's the other thing about it, is it continually fruits. It just keeps going and going. Cold hardiness can be an issue with it, but they're kind of expensive, though, to buy. Isn't Gurney's the only one who sells these?
They started at $99 a plant.
Yeah. So, anyway, so I'm not implying that people should propagate it illegally. Yeah, they're little bitty things. Yeah, but they don't have seeds, so they're really tasty. This is the holy grail of muscadines, and there's more coming. This is Oh My, literally. That's the name of the cultivar, Oh My. And this is one of the first, or the first that I know of, commercial, truly seedless muscadine. And so Dr. Creech got some, my professor, Dr. Shiner, just got some, and we're really, really excited about these things. There are going to be more coming out, but so there's been a lot of work done on muscadines, and the good thing about muscadines is they're generally pretty disease-free. Do have a problem sometimes with deer, with two-legged varmints can really be a problem, but anyway.
Do they have a thick skin like wild muscadine?
There are some, and Dr. Creech could give you, by a variety, a better idea. But there are some that have thinner skin. There's some that are more firm and everything. My favorite is probably Supreme, but I like some of the bronze ones a lot too. But they're working on trying to get them where they're not slip skin, where they're seedless, and they've come a long way. So a lot of people have a fig tree. Of course, driving over here, I always see a lot of figs in people's backyards. And I have to tell people, there are other figs out there besides brown turkey and Texas everbearing. These big purple, they're the red delicious of figs. These beautiful big purple looking figs, but at least in my humble opinion, they don't have any flavor. They have a really thick skin. Some of these types, like magnolia, can also be open eye, which we know open eye is something we want to avoid because you get the Acetobacter in there, and you start getting sour figs, which is no fun at all. But fig is a crop that's very easy for us to grow here, except for fig rust and nematodes occasionally affecting the roots. On sandy sites, they're a pretty easy crop to grow. The other thing about figs is based on my observations, everything I've ever seen, and I have a lot of deer at my house, the deer do not really bother them. And I don't know if it's the fuzziness or, have you seen deer eat them? The new growth? Oh. Yeah, they get kind of, they get kind of curious sometimes, but generally they're not going to just go to town on these things like they would a rose or a peach. Deer really, what they really love are almonds and apricots. And then plums next, and then peaches last. And then way down there are figs. But anyway, there are a lot of different varieties out there, though. Dr. Creech has, well, you and Dr. Creech and Jim Comas at Fredericksburg have, I'm sure, the largest collection in the state. What are you up to now, about 70 with the new ones? So there's a lot of diversity out there. There's some that are probably the same variety, just people, what's that fig? Oh, I don't know. Well, I'll name it. And then, so there's, I've seen 5 or so that look a lot like Celeste, but, there's a lot of different ones out there. This is Alma, okay? So, all right, y'all have to promise. Next month, you're in for a treat. You have a real entertainer, Dr. George Ray McKitchern. He's an LSU grad. He's from down there in Plaquemine Parish, out there on the levee. He did his PhD at A&M. He's been our extension pecan and viticulture specialist. Very, very knowledgeable. Anyway, I'm going to ask you. I did not impersonate him, but anyway, we were sitting around at lunchtime, and I was eating with some of y'all know Dr. William Welch and Dr. Mike Arnold and some others. And Dr. Welch started talking about one of the figs he has, and it's really good. And Dr. McKitchern, like he does a lot of times, stopped him and he said, "Hey, Bill, look at here. That ain't no good. There are 4 letters you need to know about figs. Write this down, A-L-M-A. And he's a bit opinionated, but this is Alma, okay? Alma was developed late 1970s, I believe. It was a seedling selection at Texas A&M. And this is not, I'm probably a little biased, but it's a really good fig. Now, it has a problem. It's ugly. It gets yellow, and then it gets these brown spots right before it gets ripe. And it technically has an open eye, but it has this bead of resin, and the resin is edible and everything, but this resin comes out and seals that eye. So you can't get the dried fruit beetle in there. It seals it off and protects it. So Alma is one of my favorites. It's very productive. It's a later season fig. It's one of the best tasting. Another one that I really like is Green Ischia, and there are variations of the name on this one. It's not completely closed eye. It has a little bit of an open eye, but usually it's okay. I think there may be some truth to when people say that the birds don't bother it as much because it's green. It gets kind of a yellowish green when it's ripe. But to me, it has the best flavor, and it's also got this really pretty red on the inside. LSU purple, it's a good fig too. I'll give LSU some credit. They don't only just beat the heck out of us in football, but anyway, I am pulling for them here in a few weeks. But anyway, figs, by the way, are really easy to propagate. They're one of the easiest crops to propagate, just like mulberries and grapes and pomegranates. You can pretty much stick a cutting in the ground, it'll root. Rooting hormone helps. The way we propagate grapes and most of this kind of stuff is we'll actually take a rubber tub like this with some moist wood shavings, have some bottom heat, cover it up, keep it humid, and these things will callus and root with the optimal temperature of about 80 degrees in 2 weeks. And very seldom will we get less than 100% rooting on these things. So that's an easy way. You don't even really need the bottom heat. You can do this with just room temperature too. Very easy way to propagate them. So pomegranate. Pomegranate is a crop that is pretty easy. It doesn't have a lot of pest and disease problems. You typically don't think of it as a, high input crop like a wine grape or an apple or a peach or something like that. But has anyone ever grown a pomegranate and gotten fruit that looks like this with the rod inside? Y'all know what I'm talking about? That's caused by a alternaria fungus, and we don't know how it gets in. There's some theories. Some people think it comes in at bloom time. I think it may be vectored by stink bugs and leaf-footed bugs, but bottom line is you get this beautiful red pomegranate, which may have some sunburn on it, but otherwise it's really pretty, and then you open it up and it's just this rotten, nasty stuff. So my boss, Dr. Larry Stein out at Uvalde, who's worked a lot with pomegranates, he's brought in a lot of different ones, was trying to figure out, hey, what can we do about this? Well, what he ended up finding is that the cultivar Austin was the only one that did not consistently not get this heart rot problem. And Austin, you can find it in nurseries. It's a seedling, chance seedling that someone planted in Austin. It's a lot like the fruit Wonderful. And they tried a lot of different fungicides, and none of them were really effective. But what they did find was this one variety consistently did not get that fungus. Oops, this thing's kind of jumpy on me. All right, persimmon, Diosporus kaki, okay? So this is not the fruit that you would go out there, maybe 2 months ago, these orange fruit, and you would eat them, and you feel like you've got like fiberglass on the inside of your mouth, and you can't whistle, you can't talk, you just have that terrible feeling in your mouth. This is actually another species. This is its Asian cousin, Diosporus kaki. Now, what we do with this plant is we typically graft it onto the American persimmon. It makes a really good rootstock for it. It's another very easy crop to grow. It can have some problems, Cercospora, leaf spot, and some other issues, but for the most part, it's a no-spray kind of crop, very easy. And for those of you who have ever eaten one of these things and gotten some of the skin and had that awful sensation, there are varieties out there that are what we call non-astringent. This is a Fuyu type. There are a lot of different Fuyu Hana, Gyro, a lot of different ones out there, chocolate Fuyu, giant Fuyu. But you can literally eat these things when they're still firm, and you can eat the skin on them just like you would an apple. And so a lot of people like these. I actually prefer the old astringent varieties. Tamopan is my favorite. I like Hachia is really good too. These are varieties that they have to get nice and soft and mushy, and you still don't want to eat the skin because that skin is going to be bitter. It's going to have those astringent imposing tannins, but they're really, really good. And I think the mushy ones have a better or richer flavor personally. Dr. Jerry Parsons, who Dr. Creech worked with them, he's since retired, but he was another really entertaining extension specialist, and he was always famous for saying that persimmons you had to strip down naked and eat them in a bathtub because they were so messy. They just go all over you. It does work well just putting them in a bowl, just squeezing them out and using a spoon. But anyway, so they're really easy to grow. There is one problem with this crop. Here are some trees that I had grown and bare rooted. There's the grafts down there. There is a persimmon clear wing borer. There are a couple different species, and what they do it looks kind of like a wasp, but this insect will fly around. It'll lay its eggs on the base of the tree, and the larvae, which is a worm, will go and start boring down, just like it would on a peach tree. But this thing goes down below ground level, and it only affects the native persimmon rootstock. And so when a lot of people say, yeah, they had a persimmon tree that just died all of a sudden, if you look really close to the ground, you'll see these galleries. You'll see the exudate coming out and everything. So that is one problem. But generally, they're pretty foolproof. This is jujube, okay? The other name for it is Indian jujube or Chinese date. There are a lot of, my mom calls them jujus. She really likes them. People tend to either like these a lot or hate them. And the people who really like them really, really like them. Dr. McKitchern calls them a cult fruit for that reason, I guess. But this is by far the easiest fruit crop that you can grow in terms of management. So what the fruit is, it's of course from going into southern Asia, that area. It's a drupe. It's a stone fruit. The fruit are typically, depending on the variety, kind of small. They have taste, I'd say it's kind of like an apple. When it dries, it is more like a date. It's nice and crisp, but it's very low moisture. It's kind of like a dry apple, but I think it's got a good flavor. To me, they're best when they start to turn brown like this, but they have a hard pit in the center, which you can break your teeth on. So it's just like a little plum or something like that, but they taste and everything like a miniature apple. Extremely easy to grow. The trees are pretty ornamental. This is a tree down in Houston, Heidi Sheasley's tree search nursery. She's got quite a few varieties, and they'll load up with fruit almost every year like this. They're self-fertile. They don't need pollination. Persimmons don't either. Usually the trees behave themselves pretty well. Oh, by the way, there are a lot of varieties too. Used to be that you look in Womack or Texas Pecan Nursery website or their catalog, and all you see is Lee and Lang. Now we have a lot of other ones, Tiger Tooth, Honey Jar, GA866, a lot of different ones. Some of these things can get pretty big too. Dr. Mung Mung Gu, my colleague who also works with Dr. Creech on a lot of things, she's testing out a bunch of these varieties at Texas A&M. There's one problem, like I said, with this crop. Every crop has to have at least one drawback, and this is it. This is actually, and I'm not trying to scare you, but this is a roadside up in North Texas around Cleburne. I just had to stop and take a picture. Somebody, some poor soul, a long time ago planted a jujube tree, and something caused it to root sucker, and it root suckered and root suckered and root suckered. This is what we call exponential growth, okay, in terms of propagation. And they will literally form these thickets. Now, they don't usually do this. This is kind of a worst case apocalyptic kind of scenario, but that's something to watch out for. Usually, you can cut them off or usually just mow over them. Blackberries, of course, I know SFA Gardens offers a lot of good varieties, including some of the newer ones. A lot of the new ones are coming out of Arkansas. Now what we're seeing are these primocane fruiting, which actually fruit in their first year, and they'll try to fruit at least several times throughout the year. Some of the newest ones that have come out, this is a Primark Traveler and also Primark Freedom, the one before it, are thornless primocane fruiting. Tupi, Sweetie Pie, Caddo, and Ponca. Ponca is supposed to be the best tasting, highest sugar content blackberry out there, and it's brand new out of University of Arkansas, released this past year. Let's see. Blueberry. I'm going to kind of skip through this real quick. This is, and I'm sure you'll be hearing more about this later. This is Malcolm and Dr. Creech's study on containerized blueberries, and they've got them in these grow bags. And what are these, about 15 gallons or so capacity? 15 gallons. So, and I've grown them. This is one at my house. I've grown these things. That's a 20-gallon for 10, 12 years, no problem, either in peat moss or just in composted pine bark.
You can get them in SFA purple.
There you go. I guess you can get them in maroon too, but hey, you're an Aggie back there somewhere.
But I moved to the institution of higher learning.
We're gonna keep going, but anyway. So this is goji berry, Lycium barbarum, and this is a tomato relative. It's in the Solanaceae family. It grows like a weed. According to all the health reports, it can cure every ailment known to man, or any new one that comes around. But they do have a lot of antioxidants. They're really high in lycopene and anthocyanins. Very easy to grow. They're usually they're this thorny kind of herbaceous, later becoming woody shrub, and they are deciduous. Flowers, or you can see they're a tomato-looking flower, but they're not anything to get too excited about. But pretty easy to grow. They don't appear to have much of a chilling requirement. They're cold hardy here. They don't really care about soil pH. They're pretty adaptable. So, last thing I want to talk about really quickly is pineapple guava. So, this comes from Ecclesiastes, actually. There's nothing new under the sun. So we've heard that before. Don't get excited. Someone's tried it. Don't reinvent the wheel. This is pineapple guava, which a lot of you have probably seen. I know there's one on campus around here. These are pictures from around College Station. This is at the Rudy's there in College Station. and they're a great evergreen shrub. They can be limbed up as a small tree, and they do make fruit, or at least if you have several. They require cross-pollination. The problem is the fruit are squirrel food, okay? They're these little gritty, tiny things full of seed, and they're just, I mean, I eat them, but that's not saying anything. I'll eat anything. This is a picture of some elite varieties that we got to see in New Zealand with Dr. Creech, and this is my professor, Dr. Shiner. We went about 3 years ago to New Zealand, and we got to see, what was it, about a 10-acre farm or something of these. They were espaliate, and you can see some of the size these things can get. And so we're working currently, I'm up to about 15 cultivars. We're trying to get as many as we can, do some replicated trialing here in Nacogdoches and also in College Station. We're also trying to figure out how to propagate these things. The reason that we don't see these nice varieties being sold is because they don't come true from seed, like a lot of fruit. You got to go clonal, and they don't root from cuttings. At least in literature, in my experience, they don't root very easily. And they don't graft really easily either. So we're trying to learn how to propagate them more readily. Last thing I want to mention, of course, I know you're all familiar with the kiwi fruit project that we're really excited about. Of course, you know about the golden kiwi fruit. There are a lot of different, 66 different species of kiwi fruit. There are red ones that are being produced commercially now. This is a chinensis golden kiwi species that has a lot of anthocyanins, red color in it, actually, red pigmentation. So we're learning how to grow these things. Dr. Creech was the first one to fruit them. 2014, here at SFA, 2015, struck it big with 875 pounds, mostly of Golden Dragon. But then we've had some off years too. These are the three major varieties: Golden Dragon, Golden Sunshine, A.U. Fitzgerald, which is a green. These are all available exclusively from Alabama. We'll say they were developed by Auburn University, basically. Right now, this is kind of what we're thinking is the best place for kiwi fruit. They need chilling. They're not that cold hardy. They need acid soil. And so notice the purple star. I don't know if that's the right purple, the official purple of SFA. You're smack dab in the middle of it. Here is the maroon. Obviously, we're not. We're where you can't grow anything. So it makes for a good place to torture test plants. But anyway, so we're working on a lot of different things. You might have seen this down at Jimmy Hines. I think there was a recent Facebook post. One of the problems we see with kiwi fruit is that they get cold hardiness as they get older, but when they're young, they want to grow late. They're like kids, teenagers. They want to stay up and party. They don't go to sleep early. And so then, you have, in the fall, like we did this year, you have an early freeze, like on November 1st, and they're simply not ready for it. I've looked at a lot of other things too, like I spent a lot of time working on chilling, trying to determine chilling requirements for these things. We've worked on a lot of other things too. It's been really fun. Trial sites all over the place. The newest one is down here at Simonton, which is very low chill, so that'll be really, really fun to see. Dr. Creech has reached out and formed a partnership with some international collaborators from New Zealand. They've been very helpful. They have with Dr. Creech, brought in 7 new varieties that show a lot of promise. We've also gone to USDA. We're just trying to get as many varieties as we can. We're up to about 50 now, so we've got a lot of neat things we're doing. So I want to just kind of go over a few of the conclusions that we've come to so far. Cold hardiness, like I was talking about earlier, is really dependent on timing. If you get a plant in mid-January, well, normally during the winter, I know it's warm right now, but normally if you get a mature plant, that thing can take below 10 degrees Fahrenheit typically. A mature, fully hardened off plant, whereas 27 degrees can be devastating to a young, unacclimated plant. So that's why we're looking at the trunk wrap. Cold hardiness, fortunately, does improve with age. I did a lot of statistics from the results that I got at College Station and found that the green kiwi fruit do not appear to be as hardy as the gold. So that's been kind of interesting. We have a big problem with this basal damage, and what happens is the top of the plant is okay, and right here, the lowest foot, the trunk just busts open. The bark cracks, and of course, it's like you're getting amputated at the head. your plant's gone. So the other thing is they do require at least 600 hours of chilling, at least these Auburn varieties. Now again, we found a lot of other varieties that are reportedly lower chills, so we're going to be working on that. Chilling is extremely important. This is yield. This is combined yield, all the varieties here at SFA. Production from year to year, 2014 through 2018, here is chilling. So you can see they trend pretty closely together. I've done a lot of research on looking at adaptation to alkaline soil. They're not quite a blueberry, they're more like a muscadine, but they don't like alkaline soil. But we found varieties like this one out in College Station with our 8.2 soil, nice and green, and then you have this one here that looks like if you planted, you know, a blueberry in limestone. So there's some real genetic variability here. So we're excited. Hopefully we can find some rootstocks. Water quality is really an issue. Pollination too. Trying to find the right male, since these are, you know, guy and girl plants. Try to find the right male that pollinates at the same time. So anyway, I know that's a lot of information. Of course, you can go to the SFA Facebook and web page. Also, Aggie Horticulture, fruit and nut, or you can just Google Aggie Horticulture and fruit. We have a lot of fact sheets on these different fruits. We're working on getting some good material for kiwi fruit. Hopefully that'll be available pretty soon. But anyway, so that's kind of just an update on what's going on in the fruit world, and I'm probably out of time, but.
You're fine. Any questions? Here we go.
Yes, ma'am.
A long time ago, I got some really tiny peaches at the farmer's market, and they were absolutely delicious. So I had no idea what they were, so I went up to Lowe's and got something called Little Dark Princess, I think it's called. Those things were just so prolific, they were so tolerant, and I was wondering if smaller peaches are a little bit more resistant to disease than the big.
I don't know about disease, but there is definitely, and it's kind of well, it's good and bad, I guess. There is a negative correlation between sugar content and size. So the smaller the fruit, the sweeter it gets. So if you're trying to get big peaches, that's not good, but some of those small ones can be good. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm a big, and last year I had to get out really early to get it because if I don't, the wasp, I mean, the wasp covered it.
Really?
And I would.
Like red or yellow, the paper wasps,
The red wasp.
stinging wasps, the ouch wasps.
And I mean, they would fight you for it.
Really? I've seen them get after them before. And the one thing I forgot is birds. Of course, birds love figs. They fought the birds away. Man, you just got to figure out a way to somehow make some kind of treaty with the wasp. But okay, you eat these 3 whole fruit, leave the rest for me.
Is that normal? Because I didn't see that on, but.
They'll get after fruit. Yeah, they do like their fruit.
I've never seen any like this one. I mean, there would be like every fruit had at least 2 wasps.
Wow. Yeah, I've never seen them like that. I've seen them on peaches too, but usually they're not a big problem. Hopefully it's just a seasonal thing.
Pears here, the wasp.
Pears. I've seen them on pears too. Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is there any way you can save, you know, say you just had one peach tree or something, and you have a cold fruit, can you cover it or do something?
Oh yeah, yes ma'am. So there are a lot of ways that you can do it. So without, I don't want to get into too much detail, but there are 2 main kinds of freezes. They're advective and they're irradiational. The radiational are kind of nice because it's calm and clear. It's when you get the frost, you know, the jack frost. And so that's when you can cover them up. People commercially will use sprinklers, overhead sprinklers. And there's a misconception out there. It's not that the ice is insulating. What you're doing is as long as you're freezing that water, every time you have water freezing, it's releasing heat from the heat of fusion. And so you're not actually keeping it above 32, but you're keeping it above a critical temperature, which is usually like 28 degrees for flowers or so. And so you ice them, and as long as you're producing new ice, then you can protect them like that. But sometimes you can get too much ice on there, you can break limbs. So probably the easiest way I would say is if it's a smaller tree, cover it with some kind of blanket or frost blanket. and then if you can get a heat source like a heat lamp underneath it. The other kind of freeze is when you've got windy conditions, and then it's really difficult.
You don't use plastic.
Plastic is a very poor insulator unless you've actually got heat that you're providing on the inside, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I have a pineapple water, I only have one that I got from SFA, and I had fruit this year.
Really?
And I only had one,
Really?
one pineapple water.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, keep an eye on that and keep us posted, because there are some varieties, like Coolidge is one of them that was selected because it was self-fertile. So there are a few out there, but most of them do require cross-pollination. So
I'll bring back the fruit you're cutting, but I mean,
was the fruit, was it big, or was it, I guess a young plant?
yeah, it's about that big, but I mean, the dog loves it.
Well, you got to get some away from the dog. Let us try some too, but
One of our free Joes, is that what you're saying?
I got the plant here probably 4 or 5 years ago.
And they got some fruit off of it?
Yes, I got fruit off of it this year.
Real interesting.
I always thought that they needed pollinators.
Recommend usually 3 just to make sure, and it's a physical thing because you've got the female part that's way out here and the male way over here, separation, and then there's a genetic thing like with apples too.
And I live way out in the country, so it's not getting pollinated from anywhere close.
That's really cool.
Yeah, free Joes, we've seen them.
Really
They're really awesome.
But this is the first year, and I mean, they were about this big, but the dog loved them.
Got a smart dog at least. Any other questions? All right, we've got some plants to give away.